Good afternoon, everyone. It is Thursday, June the 4th, 2020. It is currently 2:14 p.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you once again live from Victory Baptist Church, located here in Ovalo, Texas. Now, unfortunately, this is take number 3. Yes, even though these are live broadcasts, the previous two live broadcasts were interrupted in the middle of the live broadcast because of some technical difficulties. And here we go with number 3. Now, I want this episode to go. This is one of those times where I believe the importance of the subject is so great that I want this episode to go absolutely perfectly. And I know it's not going to be perfect. Because, well, I'm not a perfect broadcaster. I'm not a perfect communicator. But in my imperfection, I hope somehow something very positive can come from it, because I think that every single person needs to hear what I am about to say and what I'm about to discuss, because I think that we need to see what is currently happening in the world around us, but we need to see it in a different way. I think there's lots of discussions about what's happening in our world right now, but I think they are all at the surface level. And I'm going to argue, and my thesis is going to be that everything that we're seeing happening in our world right now, that it's a symptom of a deeper problem. It's a symptom of a disease, and the disease is below the surface, and everyone's running around trying to treat the symptoms, and nobody wants to talk about the disease. I think everyone wants to run around and argue about all of the symptoms and all the things that are happening, but they're missing the point. And sadly, the church in many cases is falling for the same thing, that they're running around arguing about all of the symptoms, and no one is saying, time out. There's something deeper going on here. And I'm going to try to show you that everything happening, and this is my thesis, is the result of something else. And I'm going to do my best to try to articulate that. All right. So please listen carefully. Please ignore my imperfection, my lack of ability to communicate this, and listen, because I believe that we need to really consider this. All right. Now, unless you've been away from planet Earth, then you are very aware that things are not going very well right now here in the United States of America and in different parts of the world. It seems right now that everything is falling apart. It seems right now that we're literally witnessing the destruction of America. It feels like in some way the world is on fire, that it's imploding in on itself, that everything is falling apart. And as everything is falling apart, as the destruction is occurring, as the world is on fire, everyone is running around with their perspectives, and they're arguing and they're fighting, and no one can agree, and there's division, and there's more and more division. As things continue to fall apart more and more, the division continues to grow, and everyone's arguing and everyone's fighting. And here's the thing. They're all running around trying to think that they're putting out the fire, running around thinking they're trying to come up with a solution, but they don't even know what the true problem is. And if you don't know what the true problem is, you can't fix it. So I'm going to try to get us to stop and look at what is going on in a deeper way. Now, I want you to listen to me carefully. I'm going to be playing a clip from a news source. I don't agree with everything this news source says in any way, shape, or form. I don't agree with everything this individual says. But I'm using the clip, listen to me carefully, to get to something deeper. If you just focus on the source, if you just focus on what this individual is going to say in the clip, then you're going to miss the thesis that I'm going to try to argue in this episode. So I'm going to give you my thesis first. I know probably if I had a producer and they were going to tell me how to put this together for radio, we would start with the clip, and then I would try to introduce my thesis later on. But I don't want anyone to be confused. So here is my thesis. All right, listen to me carefully. First, I'm going to pose the question. I'm going to pose a question. And this is going to be the same question that you're going to hear kind of offered in the news clip. But I'm going to go beyond the question, and I'm going to offer a thesis that the person in the news that you're about to listen to doesn't get to. He keeps it on the surface, and I'm going to go further. So let me start with the question. Are you ready? Is it possible that all of the chaos, all of the destruction that we see happening around us, that it is happening because of a lie or lies, plural? Is everything happening around us as part of the reason that everything seems to be falling apart, everything is being destroyed, is because of a lie or lies, plural? Is deceit and lying the problem? Now, what you're going to hear in the news clip is someone looking at least part of the problem. He's going to focus on the riots and the looting and the burning of businesses and people being attacked. He's going to blame all of that on a lie. One lie, singular. I'm coming in and going, wait a minute. I'm going to take what you're saying because I think he does bring up an interesting subject. Hey, is it possible that part of the things that are happening is based on one lie? Or if we look at everything happening, is it based on multiple lies? I think that's an interesting premise. The problem is, I think it misses the point. The point isn't one lie. The point isn't a multitude of lies. Listen to me carefully. Here is my thesis. I believe that the problem that is happening, I think the reason all these problems are happening is because, listen to me carefully, because of the death of truth. For the longest time, our society came to a conclusion that truth was no longer absolute, that truth was relative, that you had your truth, I had my truth, and my truth was true even if it contradicted your truth. And your truth could be true even though it contradicted my truth. We had our truth. Somehow both truths were right. Both truths were our own. We were to live according to our truth, even if our truth contradicted, our individual truths contradicted one another. Somehow we were to maintain that we're both right. And listen, as a result of this relativistic approach to truth that began to spread through education, it spread through entertainment, it even spread in the church. Things that we thought were dogmatic and absolute, people are like, well, I don't know. And you have your way of looking at it, and I have my way of looking at it, and you have your truth and my truth. But hey, it's still Christianity. It's still the church. You're like, no. There has to be absolute truth. There has to be an absolute correct answer. We can't just have all of our different ideas and somehow be all right. And so we saw this even it crept into the church, and maybe it took on a different form or a different shape, but it was the death of truth, the killing of truth. And listen, once there is no absolute truth, then guess what? The individual becomes the arbiter, the definer of what truth is. And when the individual becomes the one who defines what truth is, what is right, what is wrong, they become the ones who define it. Then guess what you get? You get a society where everyone does what is right in their own eyes. And if you read the book of Judges, that leads to nothing but death, destruction, and chaos. That's what you get. You can't have a society where everyone runs around and they get to determine what truth is. And here's what happens. In a society where everyone thinks they know the truth and that they define what truth is, no matter what information you bring to them to contradict it, they just throw out what you say. They just reject it and go, nope, I disagree. You're like, but here are the facts. Nope, those are fake facts. That's fake information. I reject it. And we live in a world now where here's what happens. You can bring all the facts in the world to someone. I'm going to be like, I don't believe those facts because I don't believe in that source. And so, in other words, they are only going to get information from sources that already agree with them, which only confirms in their mind that they have the truth. Well, of course you have the truth because you're not willing to listen to any information that could possibly contradict it. So now we determine what truth is based off the source. If we like the source, it's true. If we don't like the source, it's not true. And all of that is a symptom of the fact that we don't even know what truth is. We don't have the idea of absolute truth. Truth is relative. You determine what truth is. You determine what something that is a lie is. You are the one who determines it. There's no longer any absolute standard. It's subjective. It's based off feelings. It's based off emotions. It's based off what we like. And listen, part of the problem is because we have rejected God. And once you reject God, then truth can no longer exist. The individual becomes their own God to determine what right and wrong is. Now, there are many people still running around claiming they believe in God, still running around claiming to believe that there is a God and that they are spiritual. But look what they have done. They've taken the death of truth. They've utilized the death of truth to allow them now to create a God in their own image. Oh, people still want a God. They still will talk about a God. They will still talk about being spiritual. They may even talk about the Bible. They may even talk about church. But in reality, they have recreated or they've created a God in their own image. And now that God agrees with what they think. That God agrees with their political ideology, their view, because in reality, they determine what truth is. So many of the problems in our society is because truth has died. Truth has been murdered. Truth has been buried. Now, when I say it's been murdered and it's dead in the minds of the people. The people don't understand that absolute truth exists. And where there is no absolute truth, chaos reigns. Things burn. People die. Destruction happens. And that, I think so much of what we are seeing is that. And look what happens right now. There's so much chaos right now in our world that even trying to find what truth is impossible. And this is what's so frustrating. And I think this is a symptom of the death of truth. Let me explain. COVID-19. The COVID-19 situation started spreading. And immediately what happened? Everyone began to argue over what the truth was. How serious was it? How far is it going to spread? Is this a communist plot to destroy? Was this created by liberals to bring down Donald Trump? And everyone had their own narrative. Everyone had their own view. And anytime you brought anything else to contradict their view, that's fake news. I don't agree with that source. I don't agree. I only agree with my source. And they would make arguments about to wear a mask or not to wear a mask. Everyone had their own facts. Their facts were the right facts. Any facts that would contradict their facts were wrong facts. And nobody could figure out what truth is. And while all of this is happening, everyone's arguing about the mask and everyone's arguing back and forth or arguing about how serious COVID-19 is or its origins or what we should do. When we started shutting down the economy, same thing. All of the fighting happened. And listen, all of the fighting was occurring because people would not sit down and go, let's work together to find out what the facts are, because we don't think about facts anymore. We don't think about evidence anymore. We don't think about information anymore, because now we just go with our narrative. We find the facts to support our narrative, and any fact that doesn't agree with our narrative is just labeled fake news and false, and therefore we create our own version of reality. And when every individual is creating their own version of reality, they're going to come in conflict. See, there was a time that we tried to argue you would have your truth and I would have my truth, and somehow we would both be right. Now it's just like I have my truth, you have your truth, and my truth is better than your truth. And now we just start arguing with one another. So relativism came in with your truth, my truth, and they're both right. Now it's just like everyone has their own truth, and their own truth is right, and every other truth is wrong. We've even kind of disintegrated from what the supposed, wonderful world that relativism was going to bring us. We've disintegrated back down to arguing and fighting because of the truth of human depravity, which that's even denied by most people today. All right. So we have this death of truth. And I'm arguing that most of all of our problems goes back to, where is truth? What is truth? Does truth even exist? And now everyone believes that their idea of truth is what they think is true because they define it. We've either removed the true God. We may have put in place of the true God a God we've created in our image. We've taken the Bible. We so manipulate that to make it say whatever we want it to say. And now, listen, we have replaced truth, absolute facts, absolute information now with individualism, and individuals determine what is right, determine what is wrong, determines what is true, determines what is false. They determine the narrative, and anything that would contradict them, they fight, they get angry about, and they say it's wrong or they claim it's fake news. The death of truth is the underlying problem of so many of our issues, and every issue that comes up, you can't figure out what the truth is. All you can hear is the arguing. All you can hear is the debating. And this is the crisis and the problem we are facing. Let me read a scripture to you because I think this one really captures it. Right? 2 Timothy chapter 3. 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 13. 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 13. But evil men and seducers, right? So I want you to listen to here carefully. 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 13. But evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. So there is a warning here that evil men and seducers, they're going to come along and they're going to grow worse and worse and worse. Evil men and seducers, they're going to grow worse and worse and worse. But listen, they're going to deceive and then they're going to be deceived. The deceiver is going to be deceived because it's going to become a world of deception, a world where truth no longer exists. This is Paul warning Timothy that this was coming. We have arrived. We are in a post-truth era. Truth no longer exists as a tangible, absolute thing that no matter what the issue is, look, no matter what the issue is, the first question should be, what are the facts? What is true? But who cares about facts? Who cares about truth? And because we basically have rejected the idea of absolute truth. Well, if there's no absolute truth and there's not an absolute truth giver, and we now are the ones who determine what truth is, and we are now the ones who determine what is right and what is wrong, well, then why would you be shocked that people will use deception and manipulation to get any point across that they want? Why would it be wrong for them to do so? They're the ones who determine what right and wrong is. They're the ones who determine what truth is. So how can you even condemn what they are doing? It's just the natural default position of the planet. Truth is gone, and now the individual reigns, and the individual now defines what truth is. God is not the one who defines truth anymore. We've removed God, and we've placed ourselves on the throne and go, we now define truth. We define morality, and guess what? You get a world on fire and a world imploding on itself because no one can know what the truth is. Now, that is my thesis. Now, why am I going there? Because last night, I believe it was last night, Tucker Carlson, I don't always agree with him, on Fox News, I definitely don't always agree with it, but I try to listen to things from all kinds of different perspectives because guess what I want? I want truth. I want to know what the truth is. So I was listening to him, and he was discussing the protesters and the rioters, right? The protests and the rioters, the destruction of property, buildings being burned, people looting, all of the things happening. And he talked about, is it possible that all of this is happening, all of this destruction is happening because of, listen, a lie? He believes all the things regarding protest and rioting is based off a lie, singular. I'm going to argue that everything happening around us is based off a series of lies, and all of these series of lies flow from the problem, the deeper problem that no one's talking about. See, Tucker Carlson's just going to look at the surface. Rioters protest. Is there one lie that led to it? Let's fix that one lie, and then we fix the problem. I'm going to argue, how do you even define what a lie is in 2020? You call it a lie. Everyone else will say that what you're saying is a lie. So who gets to determine? Does Tucker Carlson get to determine what truth is? Do protesters get to determine what truth is? The concept of truth is gone. And when the concept of truth is gone, you can speak about lies all you want. You can speak about facts all you want. But the society has rejected the idea of absolute truth. So now you're just speaking a language that's no longer relevant to a culture who doesn't even speak in terms of truth and absolute and fact and research. They speak in emotion and opinion and feelings, and that equals truth to them. So it doesn't even matter that Tucker Carlson was like, hey, I think all of this destruction is based off a lie. Let me show you that it's a lie. Doesn't matter. Nobody's going to listen because it's an ancient language. It's an ancient language based off the idea that there was absolute truth, an absolute truth giver, someone who defined truth, someone who is true, someone who defined right, defined wrong, defined moral, defined immoral, something that is immoral, and we believe that to be God. There was an ultimate lawgiver. There was ultimately a truth definer. And we've ultimately removed God. Now, we've created gods in our own image, so people may claim that they're spiritual. But that's not the same thing. That's a false God. Because ultimately what we've done is we've made ourselves the lawgiver, the definer of morality, the definer of right, the definer of wrong, and the definer of truth. But I want you to listen to what Tucker Carlson had to say, because I'm taking what he said and I'm going deeper. If you turn this into a discussion about the protests and the rioters and Tucker Carlson, you have missed my point completely. I'm talking about the deeper problem, the disease. All of these other things are the symptom. The disease is the death of truth, right? And when I say the death of truth as far as the way people think is concerned. Truth is true, whether people acknowledge it or not. It still exists. But if no one thinks in concept of what is true and what is right, then what happens? I mean, think about Pilate. When he was having all the pressure to crucify Jesus, trying to come up with all these answers to crucify Jesus, and he interviews Jesus, and then he asked Jesus, what is truth? Well, he didn't know what truth was. He didn't have an absolute understanding of truth. He didn't even understand an absolute standard of truth. And he ultimately allows an innocent man, or in this case, the innocent Son of God, to be crucified and killed to pacify a crowd. Because what is truth? Truth is whatever was expedient to him. Right now, the truth that mattered to him is if I don't have this man crucified, I'm going to end up, my political position is going to be put in danger, maybe even my life be put in danger, or I may end up with all kinds of revolt happening in my territory. So I'm just going to do whatever's expedient, because who cares about truth? He didn't know what truth was. Whenever truth is gone, chaos, death, and destruction follows. That is the case. But let's listen to what Tucker Carlson believes is the lie that's leading to all the protest and rioting. We will hear what he has to say, and then we'll come back and expand on this idea, all right? Now, the clip I have from Tucker Carlson, I'm not super happy with because the audio quality is low. I don't have the ability to improve it. If I did, I would. If you don't like the audio quality, please know you can send me a check for $1 million and I will build a professional studio and hire a professional producer and then do better podcast. Until now, you're stuck with me and with a little microphone and a cheap laptop next to me. That's how I produce it. Me, myself, and I, a microphone and a cheap laptop. There you go. So I don't even have a top line laptop. All right. So we get what, I used to tell my kids, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. So don't throw a fit. All right. Just stay with me. All right. But let's listen to what he had to say. Here we go. All right. Here's Tucker Carlson, if I can speak correctly, from last night, talking about, is America being destroyed based off a lie? A lie. We'll see what he does, but he was onto something, but he didn't go far enough. And I'll come back to my thesis here in a minute. Here we go.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. For many of us, this has been one of the saddest, most painful weeks in memory. Depressing doesn't even begin to describe it. We have watched as mobs of violent cretins have burned our cities, defaced our monuments, beaten old women in the street, shot police officers, and stolen everything in sight, stealing everything. How many innocent Americans have these people hurt? How many have they murdered? We don't know that number, but it's the country itself that so many of us worry about at this point. After we've watched what's happened over the last week, how do we put the society back together? Can we? We don't know that either. If you're grieving for America tonight, you are not alone. Millions feel the same way you do. So many of our leaders, by contrast, are not grieving. They seem exhilarated. They feel nothing as our nation descends into anarchy. They see chaos instead as an opportunity, a chance to solidify their control, to increase their market share, to win elections. They have no interest in talking about the details of what is actually happening out there on our streets. In fact, they're hiding those details. They're demanding that you forget what you saw. Don't forget it. Remember all of it, every bit, because it's proof of who they are. This is who they are.
Whoa!
Now, I know that's the audio of the video he was playing. If you watched the video, if you were to see the video that Tucker Carlson played last night on Fox News, it's disturbing. There's no way to get around it. It looks like something out of a movie. People are smashing things, chaos. People are running everywhere. It's complete anarchy. Buildings are being burnt. Cars are on fire. People are being attacked. It's absolute insanity. People are looting. People are stealing. It's just chaos, chaos, chaos. But now, I am not accusing him of misrepresenting anything, but I just want to make sure it's very clear, because remember my thesis, we need truth, right? We need truth. So we need facts. We need information. We need the whole picture. The whole picture, though, is everything didn't just start with people rioting and destroying everything. That's not how this all started. Let's remember it all started with an unarmed African-American in handcuffs on the ground with a white officer with his knee on his neck and held it there for over 8 minutes until he died, even though he kept saying, "I can't breathe." That's how it all sparked, and that's how it all started. Now, I'm not saying, please note, I'm not trying to argue that the riots are right, the protesters are right. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, remember, the death of truth. So what do we need? We need all of that information. We need all of those facts put together to get an accurate picture of what's going on. Now, listen to me carefully. Another thing he did not show. He did not show all the peaceful protests that have occurred. My wife was a part of a peaceful protest, a peaceful march for George Floyd, the African-American male who was murdered by the police. She was there marching. There was no violence. There was no looting. There was no destruction. All right, so there are peaceful protests happening as well. We need all of that information. There are peaceful protests. There are violent protests. Okay, they didn't just start arbitrarily. There was something that sparked them, and not just the death of George Floyd. Other situations that have happened as well, where an African American was hunted down and shot and killed in Georgia. We could go through all the different ones that have happened. There is a lot that to be taken into focus here. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of elements. You have to bring them all together, right? You have to bring them all together. I want to make sure you hear this. He may be able to prove here in a minute that all of that destruction and all of the things you just heard in that audio, the audio of the video, or you see in the video, he's going to make an argument that all of that is the result of a lie, one lie. Again, I'm going to make an argument. You're right, Tucker Carlson. It is based off a lie. It's based off a lie that there is no absolute truth. It's based off the lie that truth is now relative. It's based off the lie that we get to define truth. We get to define right. We get to define wrong. He is using the terminology right. Hey, based off a lie, here are the facts, and that should solve the problem. But it can't solve the problem because no one understands that concept anymore. Any information presented to a person that contradicts their narrative and their perspective is immediately classified as fake news and a lie. And so now everyone just determines what they believe, and then you can't correct them. You can't even try to convince them that they're wrong. They'll just get mad at you. They'll act like you're being condemning, or you're closed-minded, or you're a bigot, or whatever, or you're judgmental. And you're like, no, I'm just trying to get to the truth. But truth is dead. That's the problem. Tucker Carlson is going to go after one lie. One lie. I think there is a deeper lie. But let's see where he goes, and let's listen here. All right, back to Tucker Carlson, right?
That's what they're defending. That's what they're encouraging. It has nothing to do with civil rights. It's violence. And the criminals you just saw on the screen are not protesters. The people cheering them on from their TV studios have no patience for real protests or real protesters. Just in April, Democrats in New Jersey arrested a woman for trying to plan a rally, a protest at the state capitol. The New York Times said nothing when they did that because they approved. That's how they really feel about any political expression they can't control. They crush it. What they support is more power for themselves, and they're willing to use gangs of thugs to get it. Here's one of their protesters. NBC News wouldn't show you that video, ever. Neither would CNN under any...
Now, the video is a reporter standing there, a white reporter. There's these people behind her yelling all this stuff, saying this stuff. One is holding a dog. And it looked like it was going to hurt the dog. It was kind of a little bit disturbing, but it's chaos. Now, I don't know if NBC News will never show that. I don't know if CNN will never show that, because here's what happened. Again, see where it's going. It's going to get into, Fox News, they're going to show you the truth, and those other people are going to show you lies. And so guess what? People who watch Fox News, that's right. Fox News tells us the truth. People who watch CNN, no, CNN tells us the truth. Well, and then everyone begins to argue, because now, it becomes about your perspective. And your perspective is true, and any voice that doesn't, and every other voice cannot be trusted. So you can only get your information from one source. He's playing into the same idea. There is absolute truth. There is absolute truth. And listen, Fox News is not the only place you can get truth. Neither is CNN. To be fair, you can't get absolute truth from either. You've got to try to put all the pieces together, which is a problem. And why is it a problem? Because why would we expect journalists to be all concerned about absolute truth and trying to get facts and trying to report facts when the society has abandoned the very concept? Without the idea of absolute truth, and listen, truth doesn't always correspond to your feelings or your perspective or your agenda. So, in a culture that has abandoned truth, then why would journalists not go, well, that's not my truth. That's not the way I see the world. So I'm going to present it this way because I believe this to be true. And guess who defines truth? The individual. And if the individual defines truth, then the individual reporter can report the news and whatever their perspective is. Because the concept of absolute truth and facts, everything is shaded through perspective, through personality, through emotion, through agenda. I cannot stress that enough. It's like on one hand, we're screaming, wait, we need truth. We need truth. We need truth. But at the same time, we've created a situation where the very concept is dead and no longer exists. So it's interesting to hear, he's kind of falling into the very, CNN's never going to show you that. NBC's never going to show you that. We will. Yeah. And if you watch CNN or NBC, they'll probably say, well, you'll never see this on Fox News. Well, guess what? Sometimes I got to watch Fox and the other just to get the complete picture, right? Sometimes you have to do that to try to get the complete picture. And that is important, trying to find the truth. Now, the thing is, I want to make this very clear. I am not making an argument for the protesters. I'm not making an argument for Fox News or against Fox News. I'm not trying to make any kind of argument. What I'm trying to show is that truth is the issue. And because I'm going to get some email going, well, how come you didn't play CNN? How come you didn't play NBC? Because you're missing the point. I'm not here trying to make an argument about I need to see how CNN talked about, I need to see how CNN was talking about, the rioters, and I need to see how Fox, no, I'm not trying to make that point. What the point I'm trying to make is that the subject, the idea of truth is under attack, and that is the problem. But let's go back and listen.
Circumstances. No justice, no peace, they chant as the man tortures a dog. These are the worst people in America, and our leaders have let them do whatever they want. So, of course, they want more. Their latest demand is that we eliminate the police entirely. No more law enforcement in this country. That would mean more power for the mob. They could do anything. It would mean never-ending terror for you and for your family. That's why they want it. Watch.
And we're calling our ALEC and our city council members and all our elected officials to defund the police! Defund the police! Defund the police! Defund the police!
Defund the police. No sane person would dare to have said something like that in public just a week and a half ago. Now a member of Congress has endorsed the idea, Rashida Tlaib. So what would happen to our country if we eliminated law enforcement? Eric Garcetti is the mayor of Los Angeles, the second biggest city in America. His city would devolve into a murderous hellscape within hours if the police left.
Now, how do you get to a culture where people are like, defund the police and get rid of the police? Because what truth is, if their truth is the police are all bad, get rid of the police. If that's their truth, then it doesn't matter what facts you present. You can present all the facts and go, wait a minute, if you get rid of the police, this will happen. And wait a minute, what do you do when someone steals your stuff? Who do you call? You can try to present all the contradictory information in the world. You can try to challenge their perspective. But listen, at large, I'm not saying this is every individual on the planet, but right now we are living in a world where there are deceivers and they are deceiving and they themselves are being deceived. Everyone is deceived, and the deception is this. Truth is what you want it to be. And if your truth is the police are all bad, defund them, then that's your truth. And if I come to you going, guess what would happen if we do that? He's trying to present an argument against it. Well, guess what? It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way because the idea of truth is gone. That is the issue, and that is the point that has to be considered. All right. So let's go and listen to this. He's going to make some arguments about the mayor, because the mayor of Los Angeles did something at one of the protests that Tucker Carlson now he believes is absolutely wrong. Why? Because Tucker Carlson's perception and Tucker Carlson's view of truth is different than that of the mayor of Los Angeles. So really this becomes a competing argument about whose understanding of the situation is right. Who do you go with? And again, everyone is defining what they believe to be accurate. But let's listen.
But Garcetti, who is in charge of the city, won't push back against this idea. Instead, he kneeled in subservience before the people demanding it.
L.A. Mayor Eric Garcetti joined protesters moments ago. What did he have to say?
Yes, he came out this morning, Jake, and he took the time to come out among the protesters. He knelt while he was out there saying and showing his solidarity for the movement, for the protesters here today. And I can tell you that today, this daytime protest has been very peaceful, very calm. Lots of chanting, singing.
He kneeled. Our leaders are kneeling before the mob. The atavistic ritual of self-abasement, of defeat. Suddenly, many are performing this ritual, including police around the country.
Now, stop right here and listen. The reporter made it very clear that it was a peaceful protest. He comes to a peaceful protest and he kneels down. If you see the video, he wasn't the only one kneeling down. African Americans were kneeling down on one knee with him. That's been kind of a universal thing that has been happening. African Americans have done it, white people. So was he kneeling before the mob? Was he kneeling before the mob saying, I surrender to the mob, destroy my city? Like, that's the way it's being presented. Is that an accurate, what's the truth? Tucker Carlson sees the kneeling through one perspective, and that's his truth. Those who kneel see it through a different perspective. Now, again, we need truth. We need truth. We need to accurately represent the kneeling. All of this is simply, I believe the problem is nobody even knows how to get to facts anymore. Nobody even knows how to get to the truth because the concept of truth has been murdered. It's been killed. And I think that is the problem. But let's listen here. All right, let's continue.
The mob wants victory, but more than that, it wants the total humiliation of its enemies.
I work for Black Lives Matter. I'm sorry that I scared you. Okay. But since I work for that company, my CEO has told me to come out today and to bring you on your knees because you have white privilege. So if they see that a white person is getting on their knees, that shows solidarity for the situation. And could you just please apologize for your white privilege? Just apologize?
I am. I'm trying to think of the right words to say because that's a big thing to say.
It's big.
It comes from.
It's large in this country.
I'm incredibly sorry.
Why do we kneel? We kneel because we've lost. We kneel before our victors because they have won. We put down our resistance. We beg for their mercy. But mobs rarely forgive. We're on your side, we shout. We're in solidarity. Spare us. But they never do.
Why are you on We're on your side! We're on your side! Holy what? We're on your side!
We're on your side as the rock comes through the window. You think the mob cares? No. What's happening to this country? Why are Americans surrendering to violent mobs? Well, because they've been told they have to. Everything we're now watching, the looting, the arson, the killing, has a purpose. The purpose, we're told again and again, is to end racist police violence against African Americans. We are told that that is the single greatest scourge in this country.
For the past 400 years stemming from slavery, there has been a genocide of black people in this country.
I'm sick and tired of seeing black men and women be killed and nothing be done about it.
We had a black man in the office, bro. They were still killing us, bro.
Stop killing us! Stop killing us! Stop killing us!
Stop killing us. It's chilling. And if you believe it and you're a decent person, you will be moved by it because it's awful. No American should ever be mistreated by those in authority, much less killed. The abuse of power is always and everywhere a sin, and it's increasingly common here. We should always work to end it. In this case, the death of a man at the hands of police in Minneapolis turned out to be a metaphor for abuse of power. That death has led to demands that we fire the nearly 700,000 police officers who work in the United States, and that we free the 1.5 million criminals who are now behind bars. In America, Joe Biden told us recently, quote, just the color of your skin puts your life at risk. Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey strongly agreed with that. Quote, we have so many people in our country, Booker said yesterday, African-American men, mostly unarmed, being murdered by police officers and no way of holding them accountable. So many people murdered by police officers, unarmed, says Cory Booker. You're hearing a lot of people in authority tell you that every day, every hour. One group of pro athletes just announced that, quote, it seems like every week a new tragedy unfolds before our very eyes where people are being killed by police violence. Each time we tweet, we pray, we mourn, only to repeat the cycle a few days later, end quote. In the words of Ben Crump, who's the lawyer representing George Floyd's family in Minneapolis, what we're witnessing here in America is, quote, genocide. Genocide. If you believed we were seeing genocide, then you might understand the riots now in progress.
Now, we have to look at that. All kinds of claims are being made. All kinds of claims are being made by protesters. And to be fair, you can go to any protest, any rally, anywhere. You can go to a concert, you can go to a football game, and you can find individuals that will say crazy things. Okay, so that doesn't necessarily prove this is the way everyone thinks, but I just want to make sure you see this. Those people have a certain perception of the way things are. They have a way that they believe the way things are, and the way and they are against the way things are. And he talked about people referring to it as genocide, and that these people are being killed all the time. That's the way they see it. That is their perception. That is, listen for it, that is their truth, which is a common idea in our culture. That's their truth. And if it's their truth, you can say all day long, wait, here are the statistics, here are the statistics, here are the statistics. It doesn't matter, because that's the way they perceive it. That's the way things are. And nobody's willing to stop and go, what is the truth? Because listen, if you state the truth, well, I'll go get information from a different source that tells me a different thing, and then that will be true. Again, the issue isn't whether is genocide occurring? Okay, listen, you would have to define genocide and go, I don't think that's really genocide. And Tucker Carlson's going to try to bring up some statistics and try to bring up some facts to counter this. But the problem is nobody's going to hear it, because it's going to be perceived that's his truth. And my truth is different than his truth, and my truth trumps his truth, and this is the narrative. The destruction of truth is the ultimate issue here. But let's listen to him try to clarify some of this, because I think this is what needs to be done with every issue. We need facts. We need to get people. We need to first establish the concept of truth again. But let's listen to him try to correct some of this.
There's nothing worse than genocide. But is it happening? Is any of this true? We should find out. Facts matter. What exactly are the numbers? We found the numbers, and we're going to go through them with you in some detail tonight, because it's worth it. Since 2015, the Washington Post has maintained a comprehensive database of fatal police shootings in this country. Last year, the Post logged a total of 1,004 killings. Of the 802 shootings in which the race of the police officer and the suspect was noted, 371 of those killed were white, 236 were black. The vast majority of those killed were not, in fact, unarmed. The vast majority were armed, and African-American suspects were significantly more likely to have a deadly weapon than white suspects. Yet more white suspects were killed. Overall, there were a total of precisely 10 cases in the United States last year, according to the Washington Post, in which unarmed African-Americans were fatally shot by the police. There were 9 men and 1 woman. Now, as we said, a lot is at stake. The country is at stake. So we want to take the time now to go through these case by case into the specifics. The first was a man called Chinara Feep. He was killed by a Knoxville police officer called Dylan Williams. According to Williams, Feep attacked him, choked him, and then used a taser on him, the suspect on the police officer, before the officer shot him. 5 eyewitnesses corroborated the officer's claim, and the officer was not charged. The second case concerns a man called Marcus McVeigh. He was, by any description, a career criminal from San Angelo, Texas. He'd been convicted of aggravated assault, assault on a public servant, and organized criminal activity. At the time he was killed, he was wanted on drug dealing charges. A Texas state trooper pulled him over. McVeigh fled in his car, then he fled on foot into the woods. There he fought with a trooper and was shot and killed. The officer was not charged in that case. Marzua Scott assaulted a shop employee. When a female police officer arrived and ordered the suspect toward her car, he instead charged her and knocked her to the ground. At that point, she shot and killed him. The entire incident was caught on body camera. The officer was not charged. Ryan Twyman was being approached by 2 LA County deputies when he backed into one of them with his vehicle. The deputy was caught in the car door. He and his partner opened fire. The deputies were not charged in that case. Melvin Watkins of East Baton Rouge, Louisiana, was shot by a deputy after he allegedly drove his car toward the deputy at high speed. The deputy was not charged. Isaiah Lewis, meanwhile, wasn't just unarmed. He was completely naked. Williams broke into a house and then attacked a police officer. The police tased Williams, but he kept coming at them and attacking. The officers shot him. They were not charged. Atiana Jefferson was shot by a Fort Worth deputy called Aaron Dean. A neighbor had called a non-emergency number after seeing Johnson's door open, thinking something might be wrong. Police arrived. Johnson saw them approach from a window and was holding a gun at the time. According to body camera footage, the officer shot Johnson within seconds. Jefferson, that officer has been charged with homicide. Christopher Whitfield was shot and killed in a place called Ethel, Louisiana. He had robbed a gas station. Deputy Glenn Sims said his gun discharged accidentally while grappling with Whitfield's. Sims, who is black himself, was not charged in that killing. Kevin Mason was shot by police during a multi-hour standoff. While Mason turned out not to have a gun, Mason claimed to have a gun, claimed to be armed, and vowed to kill police with it. They believed him. Mason had been in a shootout with police years before. And finally, the 10th case concerns Gregory Griffin. He was shot during a car chase. An officer called Giovanni Crespo claimed he saw someone pointing a gun at him. Later, a gun was in fact found inside the vehicle, and yet Officer Crespo was charged anyway with aggravated manslaughter. Those are the facts. That is the entire list from 2019, last year. 10 deaths. In 5 deaths, an officer was attacked just before the shooting occurred. That is not disputed. 1 allegedly was an accident. That leaves a total of 4 deaths during a pursuit or in a standoff. So out of 4, in 2 of those cases, in fully half, the officer was criminally charged. Is it possible that more of these officers should have been charged? Of course it's possible. Justice is not always served, that's for sure. But either way, this is a very small number in a country of 325 million people. This is not genocide. It's not even close to genocide. It is laughable to suggest it is. In fact, the number of police killings is dropping. In 2015, during Barack Obama's presidency, 38 unarmed black Americans and 32 whites were slain by police. Overall totals have fallen since then, and they have fallen far more dramatically for African American men. Last year was the safest year for unarmed suspects since the Washington Post began tracking police shootings. It was the safest year for both white and black suspects. At the same time, this country remains a dangerous place for police officers. 48 of them were murdered in 2019, according to FBI data. That's more than the number of unarmed suspects killed of all races. One final number for you, because it matters. In 2018, 7,407 African Americans were murdered in the United States. If 2019 continues on a similar trajectory, and we hope it doesn't, but if it does, that would mean that for every unarmed African American shot to death in the United States by police, more than 700 were murdered by someone else, usually by someone they know. Again, those are the facts. They are not in dispute. Are African Americans being hunted, as Joy Reid recklessly claimed on MSNBC recently? Or is something else happening? Is our nation being ripped apart by a total and complete lie, a provable lie, a lie used by cynical media manipulators and unscrupulous politicians who understand that racial strife, race hatred, is their path to power, even if it destroys the country? You have the facts now, and you can decide what's really going on.
Now, he does a good job there trying to present the facts, the truth, to counter a lot of the things that are being stated. Now, most likely, someone will come along and try to dispute his arguments and try to dispute his facts, and I could probably try to go find video somewhere that someone tries to address what he says, and you can have that fight all day, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Let me state it clearly. Tucker Carlson is correct. America is being destroyed by a lie. And the lie isn't just the lie about how many unarmed African Americans have been shot. That's not the lie that's destroying America. The lie that is destroying America is that there is no absolute truth, and that the individual now defines what truth is. The individual writes the narrative, the individual finds information that goes along with their narrative, and then that's the facts, and that's the way they act, and that's the way they respond. And any attempt to try to correct it only makes them angry and mad, and then calls you names and disagrees with you, and then they won't listen. And that's the end of it. And they walk away even more strengthened in their delusion, more strengthened in their error, because they won't listen to truth, because they don't understand the concept of truth. We live in a culture that has abandoned the truth, that men and women were created in the image of God. So we're just evolved animals. Well, when you start buying into the truth that we're just evolved animals, then does human life really have any value? Does it have any, is there any sanctity to human life? Well, then you see a culture that treats life as if it's not valuable and it can be destroyed. And then we're like, wait a minute. That's not right. We don't like that. Well, why do you not like it? Why? Well, we hate racism. What makes racism wrong? What makes it wrong? If we're just all evolved animals, then what difference does it make? Isn't it survival of the fittest? What is it? So we have abandoned all kinds of truth, right? The truth of absolutes. We've turned it into a world where everyone defines what truth is in their own way. And then we get mad that leads to chaos and destruction. And then what we do is then amass information that agrees with our perspective. And then we yell and scream that everyone has to agree with you. But if everyone has to agree with you, then you are arguing that there's an absolute truth, but you get to define the absolute truth. But what if I don't agree with your truth? Don't you have to agree with my truth? Then there's no solution in sight. It's a never-ending circle of arguing and debating, which is exactly what we see right now on social media and we see around the world. Christians don't get involved in that. Say, I'm not going to argue with you. I want to start with facts. I want to start with truth. Do you acknowledge that there is absolute truth and absolute facts? Yes. Okay. Well, let's determine what the facts are about any given topic. And then based off those facts, we then can determine what your view is and what my view is based off the absolute facts. But you try that. As soon as you start trying to give facts, they're going to just say, I don't believe in your facts. I disagree. I don't believe in those numbers. I reject those numbers. You know how many people will hear that clip from Tucker Carlson and go, I don't believe that. Those facts are wrong. Those facts come from Fox News. That's fake news. I don't believe it. And if I was to play a clip from a different source that maybe contradicted what Tucker Carlson said, guess what? People who hate CNN will say, I don't believe CNN because it's fake news. So no matter what source you provide, someone's going to just reject the source because they are the ones who now define what truth is. And when the individual defines what truth is, chaos, death, destruction, and burning buildings is what ensues. Is America being destroyed by a lie? No, it's being destroyed. It is being destroyed by a lie. Tucker Carlson just has the wrong lie. It's not a lie about how many African Americans are being shot or whether a genocide is occurring or not occurring. The lie is there is no absolute truth. That is the lie. The problems we see comes from a disease, and the disease is the absolute truth has been rejected. It has been denied. We've replaced ourselves as the ones who define truth. We are the ones who determine what is right and what is wrong, and that is what leads a society into chaos. And that fulfills the biblical warning that Paul gave Timothy. They're going these wicked men and these wicked men are going to grow worse and worse and worse and worse, and they are going to deceive. And they're going to be deceived because it's going to become a time of universal deceit. And what everyone, sometimes there's a quote that during a time of universal deceit, the most revolutionary act is to tell the truth. No, in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is not a revolutionary act because they just don't believe that what you're saying is true because they don't believe that truth actually exists, or they believe that they get to define what truth is. And if your information goes against with what they think, they just reject you. And so guess what? If there's no absolute truth, there's no absolute truth giver. There's no absolute law. There's no absolute lawgiver. Then why can't a journalist misrepresent the truth? Why can't a politician misrepresent the truth? Are you going to condemn them from doing so based off what? Your view of morality? Your view of truth? I've realized that trying to argue with people in our society today is a waste of time. Because you present some facts, they present counter facts, and if they can find anything that counters your facts, then then they're right and you're wrong. And you're like, well, wait a minute, don't we have to try to figure out what the actual truth is? Oh, nope, you can't question anything, because if you do, then you're the bad guy. That is the problem. So let me state it again. Is America being destroyed by a lie? Yes, it is. And that lie is that there is no absolute truth. Christians, we believe in truth. We believe in absolute truth. What we need to do is try to get people to calm down and ask this question: are there facts and is there truth? And if they say yes, and then you say, are you willing to look at that truth? And even if that truth goes against what you feel, if it even goes against what your perspective is, are you willing to change your feelings and your perspective if it goes against the truth? You've got to get back to establishing that concept. I think that is the real issue. All right, I'm going to stop right there. We went a long time. We covered a lot of things. I stated at the beginning that I believe this subject is of the utmost importance. I wish I could have communicated it better. I wish I could have communicated it clearly, because I know I'm going to get people wanting to argue about all kinds of other issues, and you're missing the point. I'm talking about the subject of truth, absolute truth. Without it, then you become the one who defines what truth is. And if you define what truth is, then guess what? I can define what truth is. And if what I define is different than you, and we can both define truth, then how can you tell me I'm wrong? How can I tell you you're wrong? And who is wrong? And what is wrong? And what is true? And what is false? And what is right? And we don't have any answers. And while we don't have any answers, we yell, scream, burn everything down, and we don't get anywhere. All right. I'll stop right there. You can email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening. God bless.